Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Q&As. I'm recording these on Wednesday afternoon because I'm going to try to fit in some other stuff this week, and I hope to have another video for you, another higher production video for you by at least a week or two. So I just wanted to give myself some more time on Thursday, so I figured let's record these today and saw there were a couple questions. So enough rambling, let's jump in and see what we got. First up, Arkanoid is looking for a fully shielded VGA cable to use with the RT4K that has all of the pins populated for use with the serial control, which means it's not just the red, green, blue, H-Sync, and V-Sync. You also need to have the same pins as the serial control and, of course, all the grounds and all the shielding. And that's a great question, and that one's going to be kind of tricky. But what I would first say is you might not need to worry about length because you could get those very cheap and very thin VGA couplers. So if you found one, for example, that was 15 feet that worked perfectly for you, you could just buy 3 of those and link them together with those couplers, and you shouldn't have any trouble whatsoever. And the couplers have the little screw terminals on them, so you could even screw them in to make sure they don't back out. And if you wanted to be extra careful, you could always wrap it with some non-conductive tape or even some duct tape or something just to make sure nothing gets in there and touches the metal. You wouldn't really need shielding for that tiny little spot unless you had it like laying on top of an RF generator or something. So for the most part, that should be fine. And that's actually something I'm going to be testing in an upcoming video anyway. So if you're not in a rush, maybe hang out and wait for that, because it would be probably 2 weeks max, and that might be a perfect solution for you or not. But all you really have to worry about is, first, does it work? So buy from a vendor that you could return stuff from, and buy one that says it is shielded, and just plug it into your tank and see if you have all of the functionality from it. And if you don't, then there's your answer, return it. If you do, then you need to do the next test, which the easiest thing to do is the blue sky in the first level of Super Mario World to the left of Yoshi's house, where all you have to do is start the level, hit pause right away, and that bright blue background, if you, for the most part, if there's going to be interference, you could see it there. It's going to be a diagonal checkerboard pattern, or you're going to see wavy lines across the screen or something. And I actually think you could see interference better there than you can even in color bar patterns and stuff like that. So checking that out, it would absolutely be the easiest way to do it. And then you just want something else to base it off of. So maybe plug the console directly into the Tink 4K and take a look then, and then plug it through this VGA cable through your other connections and see what happens, and kind of just go from there. And if you could see a difference, then they're not a good cable, because while, yes, I'm sure I could do that kind of analysis and blow it up 1,000 times, filter it out, and prove that there's a difference in cable types, at that point, a lot of times I try to be very clear about the fact that some of these details you're never going to notice with your eyes on a 4K or possibly even 8K TV, just like with the MD4A audio testing. There's a lot of stuff where it's like, hey, don't use this cable if you're using MD4A for audio analysis, but if you're just listening to your games or your music or whatever, your ears will not be able to tell a difference. It's physically impossible. So that's why for stuff like this, your own personal setup, just visually checking it out like that, you could either definitely notice a difference or you don't. And if you don't, that's a totally fine cable to use. The only time I would really want you to not do that is if you were somebody who was recommending cables on your YouTube channel, or if you were saying, hey, I need cables to do an analysis project because I'm about to start selling something and I need it to test. Like, that's when you need to dig into the stuff that doesn't matter, because that's the only time it would. So sorry for rambling about this, but I didn't want to just answer your question. I wanted to answer it for everybody else who might be thinking, how do I find a longer cable and how do I test to make sure that it's not going to get some interference? And that's basically it. So I'll see what I could do. I'll try to do that, those reviews coming up soon. But if you want to just try to buy some and test yourself, that's how I would do it. Next up, Mark Elliott has a Bang & Olufsen AV9000 CRT, and they're bringing it into a B&O service center for service, calibration, cleaning, and a new center speaker. They still service those? That's awesome. Would you mind sharing what they would charge for that? And if you're not comfortable sharing publicly, you could DM me. And if you just don't want to say, that's fine too. Don't worry about it. I'm just kind of curious because that's pretty awesome that they would still work on something like that. But anyway, Mark is sending them a Mega Drive 2 and a SCART cable for testing purposes. Would it be worth it to send their unused copy of the 240p test suite to them also? I'm positive they have their own calibration tools, and they probably even have stuff that works specifically with their TVs. But if they're even remotely nerds like us, they would love to see that and see how it looks. And you could show them the 480i test to see if the TV does officially use 240p correctly or not, or maybe only through one of the inputs. I've definitely seen HD CRTs that through the composite video looked okay, but not through the component, which was weird. Or 240p looked okay, I mean. But anyway, the answer to that is, yeah, bring it and just see if they're interested. And they might not be. They might just be like, let me fix your TV and then get out of here. Also, Mark's been thinking of getting a RetroTink 4K. And they have the Mega Drive 2, a Hyperkin NES, and they also have a Mega SG, that's the analog FPGA console, right? I always get the ROM cart and that one confused. But anyway, so that all comes down to budget, right? You already have a beautiful CRT. You appreciate the look of it, but you want to use it or you would want to use those consoles on your OLED too. I would first consider upgrading your NES because that's probably going to be a noticeable upgrade, much more noticeable than anything else. But if it's something that you want, really think about how you would use it. Because if you just said like, hey, I'm on a budget, I already have a CRT, should I get this too? No. With all respect to Mike, no. If you're on a budget, you already have awesome stuff, leave it alone. But if you do have the budget for it, don't forget everything else you could do with it. Because, yes, your Mega Drive 2 would look amazing, same with the Neo Geo, but also the Mega SG could go direct HDMI in, and you could set it to the direct video mode, whatever the analog version of that is. So essentially, you're sending the Tink 4K digital 240p and letting it scale to 4K and add scanline, CRT mask, or even BFI or whatever else. So yeah, you could get a pretty big upgrade, but you could also use it for all the other stuff I showed, old TV and movies, and if you get other consoles over the years or whatever else. So I don't know, I would think about it. If you have the budget and you think you would use stuff like that, definitely. And if you don't, you already have an awesome setup. Maybe just kind of stick with it for now, but I would absolutely, if I had the budget, having a CRT and the Tink 4K has been great. Because there's been things, I promise I won't go off on a tangent here because this is a quick one. Does anybody know the show Kolchak, the Night Stalker? I never realized that was the inspiration or one of the inspirations for the X-Files. So I've been trying to watch a couple episodes just to see, and I can't really get over the fact that it's the dad from A Christmas Story, but I'm trying. But I used some mask emulation with the Tink 4K on my OLED, and I'm going, this just doesn't look right. And I start this was before the LG video came out, and I start second guessing myself, like, should I even make this video? How accurate is this? And I just went, let me stop. I played it through my CRT, and it still looked weird. And then I tried to get it in 480i, and it still looked weird. It's just the way it was shot. And if I didn't have a CRT, multiple, and the Tink 4K, I really would have been wondering. But the fact that I had it all there to experiment with, I was like, oh no, the show just looks strange. It's messy film, it's weird. So cool, okay, fine. And when I put it back on the Tink 4K, I was like, all right, it's exactly how it's supposed to look. So if you're a tinkerer, you have a budget, absolutely. You're going to do fun stuff like that. Maybe you don't think that stuff is fun. I certainly do, because while, yes, I did spend one whole mediocre episode of Kolchak just basically playing with settings and trying to get it to look right, I also now, the next time I watched it, I just sat down and enjoyed it on the OLED. Like, it's so easy to get a CRT look. I don't have to wheel anything over. So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to add some perspective. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Next up, Marubo has a PAL Dreamcast with an optical drive emulator installed and is worried about the 12-volt heat issue, which is essentially the original GD-ROM drive is one of the only things that uses 12 volts, so when you remove it and replace it with an ODE, there's just no load on the 12-volt line, which could cause overheating. And there's two ways to get around this. The first is simply modifying the original Dreamcast power supply. And if your Dreamcast is from the same region that you are in, so PAL versus PAL 220, 220, that's exactly what I would do. And I even showed that in my Dreamcast video, which I'll link in the description for you. Just because you get to keep the original power supply, it is a very cheap and easy fix, and it is fully reversible should you ever decide to put the GD-ROM back in. Now, you could go with an external power supply. However, there's a lot more to worry about. I will pause for a second and say, if your question was, I have a Japanese Dreamcast and I'm in PAL land, that would be the right answer. You would just have to find a good one. But the reason I don't always recommend that first is finding a good one is either expensive or much harder than you would expect. There is so much low quality garbage out there, and power is very sensitive. So you could plug something in and you think everything's working fine, and a year later your Dreamcast is dead. So that's one of those things that I would avoid that unless you really wanted it for, region reasons, or you just for whatever reason wanted to upgrade and never worry about it again. But then you would have to worry about a couple of things. First and foremost, when you have these new internal power supplies, most of them require an external brick. And if that is not quality, then it doesn't matter how good the internal brick or the internal board is. You could hurt your Dreamcast with terrible power supplies. So the external brick has to be just as good quality as whatever the internal solution is. And while there absolutely are, it's sometimes hard to find, or they could be more expensive. So it's just one of those things where, and also getting a good external brick as well as an internal solution is going to be more expensive than you would think. So I would, if possible, start, because you have a PAL Dreamcast, and I'm assuming you're also in a PAL territory. I would just start by modifying the original power supply, and just go from there. And if you want other things to worry about, or other power supply solutions, if you're worried about anything else, then kind of go down that road later. I'll leave a link to the really expensive one. I think it's the Thunder Dream, I think it's called. That was one that was talked about a while back that was really good, but also very expensive. So, but the other solutions that are out there can be good. You just really got to be careful. And sometimes there's some open source solutions that when you buy it from the right vendor, they're good, but you buy it off of AliExpress and you might as well just flush your money down the toilet. So I'll leave links to everything that you need to get started, and let me know if you want more info. Next up, Arkanoid wants to know if all of the Ascend acoustic speakers are equally magnetically shielded. No, but let me continue your question. Is the CMT 340 SE2 center channel speaker shielded well enough to sit between their C4 and 20L5, which is damn near sitting on top of the 20L5? So I own the CMT 340 SE. I don't know what the 2 signifies, so you're going to want to email them and ask if they're still magnetically shielded, just like the non-2 version. And please let us know what they say after they respond to you. But mine is definitely shielded well enough. When I say well enough, if you were to take the center channel speaker and then flip it over and then aim the cone directly at the front of a CRT, you're going to get some interference. But with a CRT directly above or below, I got none. 0. And I did test it because that's exactly what that setup was. So it was totally safe doing it that way. But, and also when you do these speaker tests where you hold the speaker in front of a CRT to see if there's color changes, don't ever aim it directly at it, because you're never going to be aiming your speaker directly at a CRT. You're going to be aiming it at you. So if you ever do something where you don't get any interference at all, unless you have the cone of the speaker near the CRT, that's totally fine. So within reason, right? I mean, just use some common sense. If you have it perfectly underneath and there's no interference, but you turn it a millimeter up and there is, that's a problem. But that's not what I got with my Ascend Acoustic center channel. Also, just on a side note, I emailed them a couple times about some of their higher end speakers, and they got back and said, no, they're not magnetically shielded at all, and you cannot order them with extra shielding on there. So not that I could afford the extra high end speakers anyway, but I was just curious for anybody else who had the budget who wanted some of those, because they make some really, really nice speakers as well. Also, are the HTM 2000 SE2 mini monitors shielded as well? So same thing, if you're talking about Ascend Acoustics, I don't remember all their model numbers. So if you're talking about them, my guess is no, but for the reasons that I just said, but just email them. They'll respond within a couple of days. They're very friendly. They'll get you the info that you need. And just let them know that you're going to be using it right next to a CRT. Because the first time I emailed them, they could basically go back to me like, why would you want that? That's dumb. No one needs that anymore. And I'm like, no, I'm this guy. And I sent them my YouTube channel. I was like, you're going to see a lot of people like me emailing you because I'm recommending your speakers. And they're like, oh, okay, got it now. And so they were nice. They just had to understand, why would you even need that? So yeah, that's that's what I would recommend there. Lastly, do I also run a shielded subwoofer from them, or do I just put my subwoofer further from any CRTs? So I had a couple of different subwoofers. I had an ELAC one, which just couldn't go anywhere near the CRTs at all. In fact, I had it in the back corner of my room and just bought a really long coax cable to go to it. And then I got a cheap Velodyne, and that isn't fully shielded, but if I position it in the exact right way, it doesn't affect any of the CRTs on the CRT wall at all. And in fact, it could be kind of right next to it, but that's a used one. And I don't even remember the model number, and it's a good subwoofer, but it's not the best. There's a Yamaha that supposedly you could still find now and then that's fully shielded. And I keep trying to get that company that makes those brand new desktop shielded speakers to make them. And they basically have just ignored my email. So maybe if that's something you want, you could email them as well. I'll leave a link to to those. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the name. They're great speakers, but yeah, I'll send those over, or I'll leave a link to that review that I did. And if you just email the company and say you want a shielded subwoofer, maybe if enough of us say that, they'll actually make one, because I would love to upgrade that to a higher end. When I say higher end, I don't mean thousands of dollars. I just mean not a $200 subwoofer that's fully shielded that I don't have to worry. I think Ron, the handlebar gamer, bought a fully shielded subwoofer a while back that worked great, but it was expensive. I think it was like $1,000 or more, probably more than that. So I would like something more affordable, but yeah, do a little bit of research on that. And if you still need help, let me know, and I'll dig deeper into the subwoofer thing again. I think like every year or two, this conversation comes up and we do a deep dive trying to find new ones, and we can't. But yeah, I don't know. So just start from there, see where you go. But I think you're definitely going down the right track. And even if you decide to go a different way, the fact that you're considering shielded bookshelf speakers and trying to figure out how to make that work with your setup, I think you're going to be really pleased with what you learn. Even if you decide to do something else, I think just thinking about your room this way, if you do end up doing it, your music's going to sound better and your movies are going to sound excellent. So, and by the way, I'm not sponsored by Ascend at all. I just really like their speakers. I don't even have an affiliate code. It's just an honest opinion about it. And I've tried quite a lot of different speakers. So I have a feeling that you'll probably like these if you get them. Next up, Rob has an 8BitDo SN30 controller that they use for the PlayStation 1 via Bluetooth, but the rumble and button placement make for a pretty cramped experience. They were looking for something as close to the DualShock experience as possible. So, what do you mean exactly by that? Would a PlayStation 5 controller be good enough, or is that just not going to fit your needs as well? If you're looking for something wireless, the best solution that I've personally found, and everybody's hands are different, it's controllers very often are preference, and there's no right answer for a lot of those situations. But I found a PlayStation 5 controller with a Blue Retro solution plugging into a PS1 or PS2 is just an awesome experience. It feels like a completely stock Sony experience. And if that's what you're looking for, your current Bluetooth solution probably would work with it. If you're using Blue Retro, definitely. Brook also has adapters that I've heard are very good, and I think a buddy of mine's still waiting to lag test it, but it should be pretty decent. Brook's got a decent reputation for that. So that is a good solution for me. But if you're talking about you want like a wireless DualShock PlayStation 2 controller, I don't know. I think you'd have to get pretty creative. I think you could try to replace the guts with a different kind of controller, and and do that wirelessly. You could just deal with it being wired, I guess. But I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. Maybe just getting the PlayStation 5 controller would be good enough for you, or maybe it's just not something that would work for you or anything. But I don't know. Let me know and see where we can go with this. Next up, Justin Sizen just got a RetroTink 4K, and they're thinking of placing their OSSC Pro on top of the RT4K for space reasons. Would there be any overheating issues if both were then powered on at the same time? Are those actually ventilation holes at the top of the RT4K, or is that just a texture? So even if there weren't ventilation holes, which I'm pretty sure there are, I would still say that's fine, but space them out. So one of the things that I've always done in situations like that is I'll take a look at the rubber feet on whatever it is that I bought. So I think the OSSC Pro has like square feet on the corners, and I would just get some rubber material. They just sell feet extenders on Amazon for very, very cheap. And I would try to either, if it was aesthetically important, I would try to match the size. And if it wasn't important at all, I would just stick like whatever, long feet you can get off of Amazon. I would just stick them right to the existing feet to raise it up so that you have like a ½ inch at least between the two devices. And that's basically all I would worry about doing. Now, if you're talking about putting it in something like a server rack where it's an enclosed area, I would also add the fans to both of those. It's a little easier to do on the OSSC Pro, but it can be done on both. I'll leave links to both of the fan things for it. But if you're talking about having it on a shelf in an open space, I don't think I would worry. I think I would just have some spacers just for ventilation, but that should be all you need. Next up, Tony wanted to chime in on the conversation of trying to use modern active shutter 3D glasses with something like the Master System or even the Famicom and NES for 3D games. And Tony sent a video of somebody who did exactly that for the NES, which I didn't know anybody had done that. I didn't know this video even existed. So thank you very, very much for sharing it. But yeah, I mean, I think anybody that had some time and the knowledge to do this stuff could create an adapter based off of what Andy tested and just maybe even make one adapter with a couple of different ways to plug it into different consoles so that you could just have like a 3D glasses kit for these. It would have to be something like you get the 3D glasses, you get the receiver, and then there has to be some other kind of adapter to connect it to the SMS, the NES, whatever else. But yeah, that's awesome. So thank you for sharing that. And if anybody out there wants to take a look at this and see if they want to make their own, I'll be happy to help test and then promote the heck out of it, because all 7 of us who really want this would definitely buy it. So clearly don't drop what you're doing to try to make a product nobody's going to buy. But if this is important to you too, and you have the ability to, get in touch. Let me know. I would love to test this out. And I'd also love to see if there is any kind of visual improvement over the original, because I imagine the basic theory of it is, you black out each eye to one at a time so that you're shifting the screen between perspectives. That basic concept isn't going to get any better, but 30, 40-year-old glasses that are very, very small to look through, there might be a much better experience with just normal, larger active shutter glasses. But I don't know. Anybody out there want to give that a try and let me know? I'd love to help test that out and see where it can go. Well, that's it for this week. If you have any questions at all, please just ask them wherever it is that you support in the latest Q&A post, because the way the services work, I can't really figure out what's a new question on an old post. And also, I like just scrolling through in real time and answering them as if we were hanging out together. I just like these to be laid back and chill. And anybody that supports is welcome to ask questions. Very often, like today, the questions only come in on Patreon, just because that's where most people support. But everything is equal. It doesn't matter if it's Ko-fi or Floatplane or the YouTube community service or any of that stuff. Any questions you have, just ask there. And if for whatever reason I don't get to it, it's just because it came in after I was recording. Like today, I'm recording a day earlier than I normally do. So, it's likely questions are going to come out from the time I stopped recording to the time it gets uploaded. But anyway, as always, thank you all so much for both participating and, of course, for supporting, because it really is you who's keeping all of this stuff going. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.